First of all, let me just set the record straight. This is a podcast, not a retrospective. We're not going into this being professionals of any sort. We're just here to talk. And that is exactly what we are going to do with the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie trilogy. Hello and welcome to It's Always Sunny in Hollywood. Where I just said we're going to be talking about the Diary of a Wimpy Kid trilogy. All right, my name is Lugia. With me today are...
My name is Patty, and question, what was General Grant doing on the thermostat? I want an answer!
We're just playing.
And I'm Red. I don't have a quote.
These are not toys,
Just Red.
these are figurines. There's a difference. Yeah, Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Diary
I'm
of
not
a
gay,
Wimpy
Greg.
Okay, all right. So I'm sure Diary of a Wimpy Kid for all of us has a we obviously know of it. I'm pretty sure we've read the books growing up as well and seen the movies.
Yeah, I think all three of us read the books and saw at least this trilogy growing up.
Yeah.
Here's my question. What books did you guys stop at?
I think I stopped at Long Haul, the book after Long Haul. I don't remember
wow.
exactly.
I think I
That's a
stopped
lot further than I
after Cabin Fever. Like I had Cabin Fever, and I think that's my favorite one. But I didn't go past that.
Really? You stopped early then? It's like fifth book?
I started
Sixth.
Cabin Fever is the sixth book. Yeah. Here's the
Close
thing.
enough.
I stopped at Hard Luck, but I think like the reason I didn't continue is because like Hard Luck left like no impression on me. So I was just like, I think I'm like done with the series. Cabin Fever is probably like the last one I really liked. Although I do remember Third Wheel having like being like not terrible. But yeah, like I'd probably stop at Cabin Fever too. Six is like a pretty decent like amount of stuff though. I know Long Haul is considered sort of like a late series kind of renaissance, and I hear a lot of people don't really like it after Long Haul. But how was Long Haul though? Because like I've always felt that these Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies were like the books. I always felt they're like clearly heavily inspired by like Malcolm in the Middle and kind of like the National Lampoon Vacation movies, and Long Haul is like a straight up road trip movie. So like, how similar is it to Vacation?
I've actually never seen National Lampoon's Vacation. Fun fact, I do know the plot though, because I took an English class in college once, and the entire period our professor explained the plot of Vacation as an example of like storytelling and how if the Griswolds had just taken a plane, none of this would have happened. So I know Vacation because of a really cool professor I had, but I can't compare it to Vacation, but I remember liking it fine enough. Also, haven't really thought of it since, though.
When did
I have
Long
a
Haul
general
come
question that mid-2010s. I don't know. We were still in middle school, I think, because I haven't read it after. I haven't read any of them after middle school.
Let's see.
Question-
The Long
question
Haul was
though.
24. The Long Haul was 2014.
Yeah, we would have
Makes
been in
sense.
middle school by that time.
Question. I haven't kept up with anything Wimpy Kid since, but do you guys know, is he still in middle school?
I don't think
Yes.
so. Is he?
It's like Simpsons rules. They don't age.
Well, yeah, but isn't it one long continuous story? There's continuity. I remember like future books reference
Yeah.
previous books.
Yeah, but
Maybe Greg just got held back
they
so
just
many
don't
times.
really they just don't really address the passage of time. I know it because I'm looking at book 18. Like I'm looking at the descriptions, and book 18 is Greg's middle school is on the brink of closure due to low test scores and funding cuts. That came out 2 years ago, so he was still in middle school 2 years ago, and I doubt they changed it in the last 2 years. There's also a spin-off series now called Diary of an Awesome Friendly Kid, and it's Riley Jefferson's journal. And from what I understand, the joke about that journal is it starts off like Riley's own journal, but then like halfway through, Greg makes him forces him to make it about him.
That sounds incredibly in
Why-
character.
Because Greg Heffley is a sociopath, don't you know?
Anyway, speaking of which, I assume you guys had the do-it-yourself journals, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't.
I don't
looked through mine in
remember.
years.
I still have mine. I haven't looked back on it though, because I'm afraid of what past me probably put in there, and I would be so embarrassed to just look at it again.
I will say it is cool that I think because of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, a lot of people I knew in like elementary school started keeping journals.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. Like that's the one thing about the series. I feel like a lot of kids our age got into reading because of these books.
Oh, absolutely. This series was huge. Like when we were in like a late elementary school, early middle school. Like everyone talked
This
about
was
Wimpy Kid.
I remember this,
yeah, I guess
the
this was
Wimpy
kind of
Kid
like
books were
our
always on hold at the library. Like those were the most popular whenever we went to the library.
I guess it was kind of like a sort of like Harry Potter phenomenon just for us, but it's like kind of funny because like Harry Potter's this like big epic like it's like a Star Warsy type fantasy thing. And this is basically a sitcom in book form. So I was just thought it was kind of funny that was like that.
I think what made it so appealing is the fact that it was presented like a typical journal that anybody would write in. I know there are other series about like how awful middle school is, but I think because of the journal format, it was kind of like you
Yeah.
could see yourself in it.
There's a lot of similar book series to Diver Wimpy Kid. I know middle school, the worst years of my life was like definitely the most popular of them.
I think
It
Big
felt
I
at
Nate
least
only
also
read
like
the
went for
first
something
one.
similar.
Big Nate's different because Big Nate was just a newspaper comic, and then he decided to write books. And I don't really think they're actually all that similar. I just like Big Nate to me just kind of felt like a Nickelodeon cartoon that they just like made into a book, like
It
Jimmy
eventually
Neutron or
became a
something.
Nickelodeon cartoon.
Yeah,
Came full circle, kind of, I guess.
I know they had like a few girl ones. I think Dork Diaries was it, and like every girl I knew
Your
was
Dumb
reading that
Diary
one.
is another one.
Yeah. My favorite one was it was a book series called Planet Tad. And what's really funny about Planet Tad is I'm not actually sure it was inspired by Diver Wimpy Kid. It started off as a column in Mad Magazine, and it started in like the mid 2000s, like before the first book came out. It might have been after the Fun Brain thing came out, but I'm wondering why would any Mad Magazine writer be on Fun Brain? Yeah, I think that's just kind of funny. That one was formatted like it was like because blogs were like a thing back then, like the parody was like, oh, like they're making like a fake blog for a kid. And so the book's kind of interesting because it's not formatted like Diary Wimpy Kid, where he's like a journal for every day, but it's more like a post for every day. So some days it'll have like long ones, some days it'll just be like a random thought he has, because that's how people used to use blogs. So yeah, I really like the Planet Tad ones. Those take place in high school though, not middle school, so it's a little different.
Another example I can think of is I read a book in middle school called The Loser List, which was kind of formatted similar to Wimpy Kid in that it's basically a journal and this kid is documenting like what happens to him. It was presented more as like a straightforward book though, with the narration and people talking, but I just remember it was a very similar format, so like no doubt it was influenced.
The middle school one, worst years of my life one was interesting because I know that one is I think one of the only ones of these to also get like a movie adaptation, which I sort of why I think is probably the biggest one.
I
But
forgot it
also
had a
James
movie adaptation.
Patterson. Yeah,
I've never
we're
seen it.
let's not talk about that one. But middle school worst years of my life is really interesting because like all the others are just kind of like aimless kind of sitcoms. That book actually did have like an arc, and it was really fucked up.
I only read the first book and I remember it had like a hell of a twist. And I'm like, holy shit, really? This
It
just
was
got
written.
dark.
This is one of those like James Patterson books, which is kind of funny because do you guys know the deal with James Patterson?
I don't
You
think
know, he
so.
writes a lot of books for adults and kids.
So James Patterson is probably like the most prolific writer of all time. But here's the thing, he doesn't actually write his own books. Like I think he got big off the Alex Cross series, which I think he probably did write those. What he basically does is like he'll like come up with a story with another writer, and then they'll slap his name on it because of name recognition. But really the other guy's the guy who did the vast majority of the writing. You know how George Lucas kind of like lets other writers play with the Star Wars brand? James Patterson kind of does that where like he just kind of slaps his name on stuff, but like as a marketing thing, because like the other guys do get paid well, so it's not like he's like it's very strange. I recently saw an article where it was like Mr. Beast is writing a book with James Patterson, and I'm like, wow, two ghostwriters. That's crazy.
Who's the
But
real writer?
the actual guy who wrote Middle School The Worst Years of My Life is called Chris Tebbets. And yeah, he pretty much only makes kids movies from what I understand. So kids books, so makes sense. What other books I read? 39 Clues. Do you guys remember 39 Clues?
I think I
I
had
read
that
the
growing
first few
up.
books of that. I never finished it though.
Okay, I finished the first series. Here's my question: did any of you guys read like just a second book, or did you only read the first one?
I think I only read the
Read
first one.
like 6 books, I think.
Did you notice that every book was written by a different author?
No.
Yeah, apparently, like the 39 Clues was like a collective where like a bunch of writers came together to like, and they each wrote a different book in the series. And I was a bunch of like kids authors, and like, it kind of like threw me off because I didn't like notice the difference in the prose for some reason as a kid, which is weird because I definitely notice it now. But like, I was like, huh, every book was just written by a different guy. That really throws me off. like obviously like they did have a guy managing it all. It was Rick Riordan, who was he was famous for Percy Jackson. So prolific kids writer. He's the guy who wrote the first and like I think last one in each kind of series. So sort of the guiding voice. But anyway,
Well, on the subject of Diary of a
let's talk
Wimpy
about
Kid,
Wimpy
yeah.
Kid.
With something incredibly popular as a children's book, of course it's going to get a movie adaptation. In this case, we're going to be talking about the live-action trilogy from the early 2010s. I know there's like other films. They did The Long Haul in 2017. We're not going to talk about that one. I don't think we've ever seen it.
Yeah, we're just gonna stick with the original trilogy because it had the same directors, same cast, same writers across the
That's
board.
not
So
entirely true about the director, because this first one
really,
was only directed by Thor Freudenthal. I think that's how you pronounce that last name. And then Roderick Rules and Dog Days were directed by David Bowers.
oh, well, they got an animation guy. I recognize David Bowers. That's an animation dude.
Yeah, Roderick Rules was his first live-action directorial debut.
You know, actually, I have one more thing I want to mention. So the author of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Jeff Kinney, he also created the website Pop Tropica.
Was it?
That's crazy. You don't remember Pop Tropica?
I've never heard of it.
Really? That was like one of those games everyone on the computer lab was playing. It was on Funbrain. Remember that website, Funbrain?
No, we typically just did Cool Math. I don't remember Funbrain.
Well, Funbrain is where like the original Diary of a Wimpy Kid was like published. Also, it used to be just like an online thing that I think he would like just update like periodically. And I'm pretty sure he then like took that like online version and then split it into the first 3 books. Which so technically, this trilogy is probably like adapting like the original stuff he wrote for like the online version. Oh, and also for some reason the third movie, which was Dog Days, right?
Yes.
So for I don't know why they made this decision, but they decided that for the third movie they weren't gonna adapt 1 book, but they were gonna combine 2 books, which is interesting.
The third book chronologically is The Last Straw, and then the fourth one is Dog Days.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean chronologically, I didn't know these books had a chronology.
Well, in order of release, anyway. I would assume that's the chronology.
Well, The Last Straw was the third book
Yeah.
to come out, and then Dog Days. Okay.
If memory serves, the only thing in Dog Days directly from Last Straw is the stuff with the Boy Scouts.
I think so, yeah.
I think.
But no, also when Greg like had his clothes taken in
Was that
the
Last Straw?
hotel.
No, that was.
Yeah,
Wait,
it's
what?
on the cover of Last Straw.
Well, yeah, but that's not a scene in the movie.
Yeah, it is. When
No, it isn't.
Greg has his clothes taken, and he in the hotel. Remember?
Yeah, but that's not a scene in the movie.
It's in one of the movies.
He gets his clothes taken in Roderick Rules when he's in the retirement home.
No, his clothes weren't taken. It's just he was
Oh.
sleeping in his underwear.
Oh, yeah, I kind of watched all these 3 movies together, so I guess I just kind of blended them. Huh. Wait, so okay, I guess they split Last Straw into both movies.
It's weird. I assume they went for Dog Days because it was a summer release. So they kind of just wanted to like have it fit with the release schedule. That's what I assume anyway. I couldn't really find anything other than that. But let's just stick to the first movie for now because I have a lot to say about this first movie.
Take it away.
So, Diary of a Wimpy Kid was released, the movie anyway, was released on March 19th, 2010, directed by Thor Freudenthal. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It had a budget of $15 million and it made over 76 million, and all 3 of these movies
That's
kind of
shocking.
all 3 of these movies had similar budgets and success.
They all made in the 70 millions. But that's shocked me so much because it felt like everyone fucking saw these movies because everyone read the books. And only 70 million, 76 million? That's crazy. That's like a good amount, but that's like cult classic amount. That's not like a movie that actually made like a fuck ton of money amount. I was like, whoa, what?
I'm honestly
like, I'm
surprised
thinking,
like they kept it going with that number because I thought it would have you would have saw
mean, it's such a
diminishing
low-
returns with by
I mean,
Dog
such a
Days.
low budget that like, well, actually, Dog Days made more money.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Well, it only made like $1 million more, but it made more money. Like 10 Things I Hate About You is considered a cult classic, and it made like roughly the same amount of like money and like I know like almost everyone has like knows about 10 Things I Hate About You, and like pretty much everyone knows about Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but like, I think that's just interesting because like the way people measure success before the MCU versus now. Because I feel like the MCU, everyone's like, if you ain't making like hundreds of millions of dollars, your movie wasn't like a huge success. And like a movie, like these movies that made less than $100 million have like such a large cultural like footprint. Like everyone seems to at least heard of it. Like in the grand scheme of things, it didn't really make that much money. Like there are movies now where like if they made that kind of like profit thing ratio, like people would call it like a failure, but like I guess not. I think people nowadays have a very like warped view of what a success is now.
Yeah. So I have a list of fun facts for this movie in particular because I still have my copy of the movie diary, which basically lists Jeff Kinney's experience with being a part of the film's production as well as the cast members in it. So I cite my source as the movie diary for this portion. Diary of Wimpy Kid was supposed to take place in a small little American town. You wouldn't really know where specifically, just somewhere you would call home. This film was shot in Canada.
Most movies are shot in Canada, so that makes sense.
Zachary Gordon, who plays Greg Heffley in all three of these films, was celebrating his 11th birthday, and his birthday wish was to get the role of Greg Heffley for the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie. And, well,
Did he get it?
Now
no,
he's
he
yoked as
didn't.
fuck. Zach
Answer's
Gordon,
yes, he
he
got
didn't
it.
do like a ton after this movie, right?
I don't know.
Apparently he was in Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa. That's like the only like other notable thing I really noticed on his filmography, which
Isn't
is
he
a
like a
shame.
model now or something?
I don't know if he's a model, but I know he's buff as fuck.
Going back to fun facts. So Zach and
He was in
Robert
Beverly Hills
Capron.
Chihuahua 2. He was Poppy Jr. in Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2. Interesting.
So Zach and Robert Capron, who was Rowley in the film, were both tasked to write an essay about their character's life from their perspective. So they technically had to do a homework assignment in order to prove that they're worthy for the role.
This isn't actually uncommon with a lot of child productions I've heard, because I know the Harry Potter kids had to do the same thing.
Westmore Middle School is not actually just one school, but they used 3 of them, all in Canada. One for the gymnasium, one for the exterior, and one for the classroom in the hallway, to give you the illusion of this being one middle school and not just 3. One of the other actors, or one of the other characters, namely Manny, is an interesting case because he was played by
twins,
2
right?
actors.
Twins, right?
Yeah. And one of the hardest scenes to shoot in the film was Manny saying Bubby when he's pointing out Greg in the Wizard of Oz play. So they had to bribe one of the twins with candy just so that he could say the line. Because obviously when you're working with 3-year-olds, like they're barely aware of their surroundings. They don't know they're on the job and they want to go home, especially since they're in a room full of strangers.
I don't have like the movie diary book with me, but for some reason there's this one story in it that always like kind of stuck with me. And that's the fact that the scene where a dude has to like lick an ice cream was apparently like one of the hardest scenes to shoot in the movie.
Yeah, because the room was
That
so
was-
I
hot.
remember that.
Because to get like the lighting right, they have these like big industrial like lights and stuff, and apparently that stuff can heat up a room, and also was shot in like a gymnasium. And I was like, huh, it's like really interesting because like that's just something I never really consider, like the temperature. That's like one of the first like filmmaking stories I think I ever like heard, and like it got me like very curious about more about the process and like movie magic and stuff, and that kind of like got me looking more into more behind the scenes stuff.
This book, when I was young, was like my first foray into like learning what making films is like and just seeing like all the movie magic at play. It's really good for like an introductory read. Like obviously,
Also,
if you're gonna take it seriously, like take actual courses. But like for like from like an outsider's perspective going into film, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, honestly, this whole like movie diary thing was like very illuminating, just because like I remember learning how they did like the cheese, and it was like a plastic thing. I was like ah, makes sense. Also, I don't know if you guys had this experience, but so I mentioned Zachary Gordon not having much of a career beyond this movie, but pretty much all the other actors did. So it was always like really funny, like for me, like growing up when I would see like other things, and I'd be like, wait a second, is that who I think it is? Because I know like the guy who plays Rowley, like I distinctly remember him in like the Three Stooges movie playing a young Curly, and that always threw me off. And then like in Frankenweenie, I recognize his voice. And like he hasn't done like a ton, but like during like the era when like that Wimpy Kid was coming out, he was in like a lot of other kid stuff. And I was like, huh, I know he was in the Sorcerer's Apprentice too. So I don't know. I was just kind of curious how he had more of a career. Of course, the adult actors they all had I guess a much more noticeable career. Like I don't know what's the right term. I'd probably say the dad is probably like the most famous person in the cast, Steve Zahn. Mostly because like he was like a legit like character actor for most of his career. Like if I actually mention his filmography, you're gonna be like, oh wow, that was him.
Oh,
Because
he was in Chicken Little.
he was like in Reality Bites, that Ben Stiller movie. He was in Crimson Tide, the fucking Tony Scott like that like Denzel movie.
But yeah, but
Out of
other than
Sight.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I will always know him for Chicken Little.
I always loved him in Out of Sight. That's like one of my favorite Soderbergh movies. He was in You've Got Mail. I was like, holy shit! Like it was like him in particular was always like the one that was like threw me off because I don't know if you guys have this, but like for some reason like I always just associate a movie with like the first thing I see them in. So anytime like I watch like it's just so funny every time like I watch like I'll put on like Sahara or something. I'll be like, is that the dad from Diary of a Wimpy Kid? It's just like it's just a constant thing with me. Where, like I'm always just like, oh, it's a dad from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I saw like Dallas Buyers Club, which is like this Oscar like bait movie, and I was like, he's in there. I was like, what the fuck?
Fair enough. I mean, like, no matter what movie I see Paul Giamatti in, I will always think of him in Big Fat Liar first.
I think like Devin Bosnick also is like probably the second most notable actor because one because of that whole like not a Roger campaign where like a bunch of people really want to be like just recast for the like play like the same guy in, like Darwin Pickett 4 for some reason, and of course people kind of walked back on that after the actor from Darwin Pickett came out, but I remember him having like a decently significant role in that CW show The 100. And I know we're only talking about the first one right now, but obviously the sequel introduced oh no, this was the first, it wasn't the sequel. It was sorry, I saw these together so I got confused. But for some reason the first movie had like an original character
Angie,
with
yeah.
Chloe Grace, yeah, with Chloe Grace Moretz. Honestly, she actually probably has the biggest career of everyone in this. Because she was like a real like big thing for a while. Did the book mention why they made the new character Angie?
I
That's
don't
like a
think
question I've
so.
always had. 'Cause I was always wondering, like, who the hell is this?
It's also weird because she never shows up again in the sequels. Like, this is her only movie.
Yeah, they basically like replaced her
Gone.
with Holly.
Yeah. Well, Angie was never really meant to be a love interest anyway.
Yeah, I know, but Holly kind of sort of like because they changed Holly's character from the books too. Because Holly was like basically like the little redhead girl and like Peanuts were like they never actually like interact or anything. Like Holly's just like someone that like Greg pined for from afar, but like she's like an actual character in the sequels, and like she's kind of Greg's friend, and obviously from like a different position from Angie, who's like a sort of punk kid. She's more anti-authority, but like it's interesting. But Chloe Grace Moretz is probably best known for Kick-Ass, which came out the same year as Darwin with Kids. That must have been kind of funny.
Speaking of other cast members, so during the mother and son sweetheart dance, the person who Raleigh was dancing was supposed to be his mother is actually Raleigh's actor's mother in real life. Although I'm pretty sure the person playing Raleigh's mother in Dog Days is a completely different person.
Makes sense.
And I just got a couple more before we start getting into the nitty gritty. So, of course, since you're dealing with child actors on set, they still have school, they still have other responsibilities to do. So whenever they had a break period, the child actors would have to like do their schoolwork and try to like squeeze in like any homework they possibly could. From what I read in the movie diary, it didn't seem like it was like that grueling of a process since the producers would also help them out like if they needed it. And last thing, the animated segments that are in the style of the illustrations of the Diary of Wimpy Kid series are actually 3D.
Yeah, that shit always fucked me up. I was like, what do you mean it's 3D?
But yeah,
How?
I
Doesn't
think
make
that's
sense.
it for fun facts for the first movie.
One thing I want to say is I always felt that I don't want to say our generation. I want to say our class, like specifically the people our age, our exact age, had a very unique experience with this movie series because this movie trilogy came out when we were in middle school. Like we were the exact age of the characters the year it came out, which was always very cool to me. All the actors are like a year or two older than us just because they had to, they obviously filmed it the year before it came out. But like, yeah, because like this came out in 2010, and in 2010, we were just going into middle school. Almost felt like it kind of prepared us for like the next year or something, almost
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah, I always thought that was cool. Anyway, here's a question I have for you guys. Do you guys like the books or the movies more?
I haven't read the books in over 10 years.
Yeah, just going off of recent memory, I would say the movies, but with an asterisk.
Okay, I guess here's my question. When you first saw the movies when they came out, was there anything about it that bothered you, like as a book fan? Because I remember, like, I guess here's my thing. I remember when I first saw the movie, I really, really liked it, but I was kind of annoyed at the stuff they cut and the stuff they added. As an adult now, one, I kind of still agree because here's my opinion. I think the books are funnier, but I think the movies are like kind of better just because Greg actually like has an arc in all of these movies and he changes as a character.
Yeah, the films definitely take a lot more liberties with adding a narrative structure for not only Greg but also some of the other
Yeah.
characters. Like,
I do think that
obviously
is
Roger
very
Rules, you get
admirable,
Roderick having an
considering
arc.
how loose the structure is in the book.
Yeah,
I do think
and
that's
the
very
interesting thing to
admirable.
me is like it carries over movie to movie because like Greg isn't really a shitty friend to Rally in the second book anymore. And I think that that's why they kind of structured the movies the way it was. Where like the first movie is about his relationship with his best friend, the second movie is about his relationship with his brother, the third movie is about the relationship with his dad.
you see them carry
Downplayed
over
or
from movie to
restructured like
movie.
kind of stuff.
Like, there's
Yeah,
actual
because like
cause and effect between all the films.
yeah, because like
Dude, I'd
one
love
thing
to
that
see
all
it.
like stood out to me was like in the third movie, Greg helps his brother like get a gig.
Yeah.
And that would just not fucking happen in the first like movie because they did not have that kind of relationship. But the second movie, they kind of became friends. In the third movie, they don't really have an adversarial relationship anymore. So it's kind of interesting. And I guess I imagine that's one of the reasons like they ended the movie series, not just because like the actors aged, but just because like there wasn't really much relationship, any more relationships to tell. Like, what are you gonna do? Make a Manny movie? The fuck wants to watch that? Or like the mom, and it was like the mom is I feel like their relationship actually does kind of like gradually build throughout like the mom kind of feels like the undercurrent because I feel like
She never really
they don't
has a
have like a
focused
dedicated
arc. Yeah.
they never have a focused arc, but it never feels like his relationship with her is like that bad to begin with because like the mom's kind of like she's kind of like the linchpin like in like the first movie with like getting him and Rowley like encouraging like him and Roderick to like be together. She's kind of like
Yeah.
the driving force. She's like the one that kind of like pushes him to like build these relationships. It's like it's interesting.
But to go back to
Um,
your original question, I can't really think of anything from when I first saw it that bothered me. I remember I was a bit confused about Angie's presence, since again she was created for the movie. But I don't mind her inclusion.
I wouldn't have
yeah,
minded Angie if she carried over into the sequels.
I was like trying to think. I was like, why was she not there? It's like maybe she like graduated because like
But
I think
she's
they did
7th
like write her
grade.
as being like, oh yeah,
Maybe she moved. I don't know.
Like, just maybe like some explanation, some brief explanation, like how Greg got rid of the cheese touch. Just something like that. Just like a one sentence, one line response. But it's whatever.
that would have been fun. That would have been a really
If she
fucking funny
got the
joke.
cheese
Now think
touch.
about it. It's like she gave Andrew the teach touch. Andrew was about to move, so Greg was like, "Hey, can you can you just do me a solid?"
No.
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past him.
But yeah, it's kind of funny. Like I always call like the book like kind of a sitcom. I feel like it works because sitcoms characters don't really change that much. Like, they're kind of stagnant, and the movies, people do. And I guess like it kind of reflects on I guess the medium because like Greg honestly gets kind of like flanderized in the books because he becomes like a worse person as it goes along. Greg is like a kind of like the classic like example of like a relatively common archetype of guys where like they think they're destined for greatness, but they don't actually have anything backing it up. So it's just like they just have like this weird narcissism. When I feel like in the movies, he's much more of like he's super conscious of his reputation, and he just kind of needs to learn to let it go. At least that's like what the first movie kind of felt like. Where like he cared about his reputation so much, he kind of like let it sabotage his actual relationships, and he sort of learns to like get out of that.
I would say he becomes more likable in the sequels, but I do think he is at his worst in this movie.
Definitely in the beginning half. That's supposed to be the point of Greg Heffley. Like, he is supposed to be this shithead kid who cares about himself.
What's
But
really funny is like I feel like as a kid I was a little bit more sympathetic towards him just because like one which is weird because I don't really feel I'm at all any similar to Greg, but for some reason don't know what made me sympathetic to him.
But
It was the comic arc in the book because obviously like all three of us drew comics, and like when I was like, this teacher's like changed his comic. I was like, that's fucked up. I was like, that is not right. That is. I was like that. Like I would be so fucking pissed if like I drew a comic and then like I opened up the newspaper and they changed all the dialogue. I'd be like, you motherfucker. So I was fully sympathetic towards him at that point. And also, quite frankly, I thought his comics were funnier than Rally's. I liked Zooey Mama, but like his actual jokes was kind of funny, like to me. So I was like, I don't know. I was just very sympathetic towards his plight there because I felt that he got done dirty, and I also thought that like his shit was actually pretty funny. So I don't get like why they did him like that. I feel like that's like probably like one of the only times where like Greg honestly he was just unjustly fucked over. And, like, he just got done dirty, and like that is so unfair. Honestly, the whole comic
Also-
arc is probably like the funniest part of the book for me because of the fucking wacky dog shit. That was such a funny joke, especially like as an adult now, because like the idea of like a guy who like just makes a comic and then after a while he just like uses it to air out his grievances. It feels like such like an observant thing because I see that in TV shows sometimes where someone is clearly just like writing out their grievances through their character's mouth. But also, it was such a comic thing for web comics back in the day. Like, I don't know if you guys remember Control Alt Delete, but he used to do that
Oh,
a fucking
yeah.
lot. And I was like, oh my god, Greg Heffley is Tim Buckley. And I was like, Greg Heffley growing up to be like a Tim Buckley type kind of guy is such a funny fucking idea to me. I mean, not even like it technically wasn't Greg Heffley, it was like the other guy. But like I don't know, it's just like that's such a funny like idea to me that like because I would see stuff like that in real life. It's just becomes so funny when you realize like this is an actual thing that happens, and it's like it's an observation that like most people aren't gonna get, but like it's hilarious. I don't know. The Halloween shit was also kind of obviously because that one came back.
Ironically, I didn't
That's
remember
funny.
much about the Halloween stuff rewatching this.
The Halloween stuff I just remember is just because I remember like the ending punchline being like so fucking cruel that like I just thought it was kind of hilarious. Although I'll be honest, I never really understood it. Like I accepted the logic, but I don't think it actually makes sense because candies are wrapped. So getting dumped with water would not ruin your candy in any sense. So like I didn't understand it. I was like, what do you mean like because like that's kind of like what they try to make it imply, like the book or something. But like that like the candy got ruined, but like I don't know. The movie didn't really do that. It just kind of like it just kind of felt like I guess like a salt in the wound after such a shitty night. So I feel it worked a little bit better there because like I wasn't like I wasn't confused after. I was just like, oh yeah, terrible night, and then he got fucked over. just like an extra little salt in the wound. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty funny.
The subject of the bullies. This is an incredibly random comment, but it's something I noticed. You guys think that the main bully kind of looks like Ben Platt? Just look at him.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
didn't
thinking to
think
myself.
that because like he was a ginger,
I'm-
and that part always stuck out with me. But now that
well,
you
no,
mention it,
I'm just looking at him like, so is terrorizing kids on Halloween night just another scummy thing that Evan Hansen decided to do? Probably.
oh, here's something. Do you guys remember in like actual middle school, everyone like pretending like the cheese touch was like an actual thing?
Yeah,
Why?
because
kinda
it's Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a reflection of real life.
Yeah,
We're all
but it was like
secretly
there's no cheese.
sociopaths.
Like it just kind of felt like the circle game almost, where like one guy like in our class would just be like, oh, you got the cheese touch, and then like everyone would just like play that game for like thing. It was like all across
Just
the fingers.
'cause.
It's kind of funny thing.
I feel like we all just actively wanted to be in that environment because it was so chaotic.
I guess like that's a problem with kids. I guess for like I feel like kids are very imaginative, but they're also like super derivative. Anytime they actually try to like put something pen to paper, which is kind of interesting. I mean, even our comics kind of had that
Remember, I
vibe.
mean, I got into drawing by making my own Captain Underpants and Peanuts comics.
Dude, I saved all my old comics. As like really funny look at them because I did Captain Underpants, but in my head I knew that like I couldn't just copy it like verbatim, so I didn't make fan comics, but I basically just made a ripoff of Captain Underpants. For some reason, my idea of like just making them of the ripoff is just like, what if he was just butt naked? So I just drew Captain Underpants, but he had a dick. And it was like I remember like I think I showed it to like a teacher when I was in elementary school, and like I'm wondering how the fuck did they react to that shit?
You didn't even get in trouble for it?
Well, no, like what are they like? I'm just like I think they're just like yeah, maybe don't show this one to have other people. I was like okay. I was like, I guess it's not my best work. Yeah, but I remember I also remember writing like a Calvin and Hobbes like ripoff comic. I think like the only original one I did was like Taco Man because like that was just like a superhero, and for some reason it just became like me and my friend at the time, Robert. We were just like making up funny, random, funny bullshit and just kind of slapping it together. And what's really funny is if you read it, it clearly starts off as like a superhero like Batman parody. And halfway through the first issue, we get super bored and we just decide to like make it like a surreal like thing where like it's like a surreal like space thing where like we're just like after the nuclear explosion that gave them their powers, it also just like destroyed reality and we just kind of had it be like Looney Tunes shit in like a white void. It was like so bizarre. And also we had like Dragon Ball references, like every other page would just be like a Dragon Ball reference. It was the most bizarre thing ever. And we've made like so many issues. And like, I remember like halfway through, I was like, oh right, this comic was just us making fun of like our friend Luis. I was like, wait. In fifth grade, just me and like this kid in my class, we would just make just like a ton of comics just in class when we were bored. And it would always be like just whatever random funny shit we came up with. And when I read it, I honestly like still think it's funny, but what's really funny is like, and by the way, shout out to Dave Pilkey, the guy who writes Captain Underpants, because this is something I noticed he does in his own books too. Like when I look back on them, where little kids will sometimes pick up things that they hear, but they won't fully understand it, or they'll like do something using like little kid logic, but they won't actually like think things through. So like as an adult, when you read it, it comes off completely different than as a kid. Like my classic example is in Dogman. So you know you guys know Dogman, right?
Yeah.
So a guy and his canine dog, they die in a horrible accident, and they're like, "Dog, your body's dead." And then the guy's like, "Man, your head is dead. So we're gonna sew the dog's head onto the man's body." And that's so morbid, but it's like the kind of thing where like a kid wouldn't realize how morbid it is. So it's kind of funny. So when I was a kid in my comic, I heard the word censored a lot, censored block, censored bar, and I didn't know what it meant, but I thought it was a funny word. So I had a character whose head was a block, and my joke was like, oh, he's a blockhead. It was like a Peanuts like reference thing. It was like, oh, it'd be fun if I made the villain a literal blockhead. And then I just thought it looked weird to have like nothing on the block, so I wrote the word censored because I heard of like the censor bars, and I was like, okay, yeah. And then like I showed it around to my teachers, and like obviously like the blockhead joke, it was just like a visual joke. It's not like something actually like explained in the comic. So like when I flipped to the thing, I was like, oh my god, they thought the joke was dickhead, not a blockhead. I was like, oh god. That was a random tangent. Anyway.
Personal anecdotes aside, do we like this first movie?
I'll start and say, damn, it hurt my soul. Cause okay, going in, so initially I just wanted to do the first two movies because I had more nostalgia for them, but we're ending, we're doing the trilogy anyway, so it's fine. Growing up, Diary of a Wimpy Kid was probably one of my favorite films ever made. And of course, this was during a time where I was like obsessed with the franchise. I would get all the books I could that were coming out. I had the do-it-yourself book that I spent so much time on. I was drawing in Jeff Kinney's style just to try to mimic him in my real life. The movie Diary helped me like understand how films work and eventually got me, into films. And we probably wouldn't even be here today if I didn't do that. But going back to this first movie made me realize, holy shit, what was I thinking? Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the first movie, it has a lot of heart to it. I think there are a lot of admirable qualities. Like, I think the casting is perfect. Like, for the Heffley family, for Rowley, like...
The dad is, like, so fucking funny. And it's like, he's funny, like, a different way than, like, the book version was. Because, like, I feel like the book, he was just, like, a stern dad. I was like, oh, fuck my life. On the movie, he's a little insane, which was kind of funny to me.
You could tell me that he killed his previous family and I'd believe you. Like, he goes fucking insane sometimes. But
again, with General Grant on the thermostat.
But like everything else about it, like some of the gross out humor, I remember being like, oh my god, why? Like everything with Fregley just kind of made me wince.
Here's my criticism. I also don't like this movie as much as I did as a kid, but like Actually, no, I don't like this movie as much as I didn't like it as a kid, I guess, because this is like the rare thing where like I feel like the changes they made to Greg's arc was good, but every other change they made was worse from the book. The stuff they added, like the mom and son dance, not that funny. A lot of the gross out stuff, not my thing. All the stuff that was like faithful was pretty hilarious, but like anything they changed was just like it fell flat to me. Except when it came to like the character arc,
Yeah.
where like Greg at the end learned to
Yeah.
like be less of a
But
dick.
even
about
then,
right.
And,
it takes a while for you to like understand Greg because he is insufferable, and that's the point.
Well, here's the thing.
I get
Him
it.
being insufferable, I don't take much pause with because here's the thing. If we're ranking like the type of person everyone is in their life, the worst they probably are, unless they become like a criminal or something, the worst time in people's lives that they are is when they're in middle school. Middle school children are the devil. It's
Yeah.
like it's the point in their life where they've developed intellectually, where they don't like they aren't a slave to their emotions the way like elementary schools are, but they haven't actually like gained like empathy in the right way. So they're just kind of like a bunch of like selfish little monsters. They're evil. Middle school children are evil. They're the devil. I think Greg Heffley's an accurate reflection of that.
He breaks Rally's hand, and he isn't even sorry for it. Like during the breakup scene, he says that broken
wanna be
hand
honest, that
was
was kinda
literally the
hilarious.
best thing that happened to you. It is funny, but also it just
It's
goes
really-
to show
it's-
how
it's
shitty
really-
Greg is.
It's funny because like I understand his logic, but like he doesn't really like understand like how fucking painful like a broken arm probably is, and how much of like a fucked up experience that is. So he just like sees everyone be like, "Whoa!" Yeah. It's like, man, this kid's popular now. What the fuck? That was my idea. So he was just like, "Yo, I broke his arm," and like everyone's like, "Are you insane? Like you psycho?" Like I don't know. It's just kind of
Like he's
funny,
expecting credit for it. It's
I think like it ultimately like still work. Like him being a terrible person, I feel like it still works just because like he does like suffer for it. Clearly, it's not as tightly written as like say a Mean Girls or Election, which are in my opinion very similar kind of movies to this. I wasn't like bothered by him being like a horrible person, but I do appreciate the sequels lightening up because my criticism of the first movie don't apply to the second movie. I think the second movie is actually pretty good. I like the second one.
we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
Patty,
Okay,
did you
yeah,
have
yeah.
anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, so I have an interesting relationship in terms of my opinion on this movie. So when I first saw it as a kid in theaters, like obviously I
Oh.
loved it,
Yeah, I just realized I think that's the reason for Angie.
but
I think that's why they added Angie because I think maybe like during the scripting process they realized that came off as too unlikable, so they had Angie in there to just sort of like tell him to his face, "Yo, Greg, you're kind of a terrible guy and your priorities are fucked up."
Well,
Like
I mean,
that's
isn't that also the point
that's
of Rally
whole
during the
movie.
breakup?
Yeah, but like here's the thing, like Riley's kind of aloof. So like that's sort of like the breaking point. Like I feel like the point with Riley is like that's supposed to like be the idea like, oh, you went too far. But like Angie is kind of like calling him out throughout the whole movie, where with Riley it's just sort of like that's like the breaking point. That's like the moment like Greg realized he kind of fucked up. Angie, I think, is meant to be like the audience almost, or like it's like, well, you're a dick. You need to stop being so vain. Maybe you should need to focus on this and that. And all that.
as I was
I will
saying,
say this is only funny to me as an adult. I didn't find that funny as a kid, but like Greg becoming safety patrol thing, I was like, oh, it's kind of funny because I feel like it kind of implies he's a little bit of a power tripper. He's kind of like a rent-a-cop almost, where like he became safety patrol because he wanted like, authority of like a police officer. I was like, huh, yeah, kind of does have that mentality. Yeah. All right, go on.
so when I first saw this movie in theaters as a kid, like obviously I loved it because it started with Wimpy Kid on the big screen. It's everything I ever wanted it to be. Then a few years later, I rewatched it on DVD, and I wasn't really into it. I was thinking this is way too mean-spirited. I'm not really into this. Then here I am again as an adult rewatching it, knowing now that the whole point is that Greg is supposed to be an unlikable dick. So with that in mind, I didn't really have a problem with this character. I mean, he's a dick, like, but again, that's the point. I was fine with that, and he fails, so cool. But I feel like after a while, it just stops being fun to watch.
Yeah.
That kind of applies to the sequels as well. Like, yeah, he's a mean kid, but like some of these scenes are just like I don't need to see that. Like I'm jumping the gun a bit, but one of my least favorite scenes is the church scene in the second movie because of how awkward it is. And like yeah, I like Greg's a bad person, but like I feel like that's going a bit too far.
Do you guys have like a theory for why none of this stuff like seems to be an issue in the books, but it is kind of weird in like the movie thing. Is it just because like with the book there's like a little bit of a disconnect with
Well, I haven't read the books in years, so
all right. Well, I just think I think maybe the thing is like because like we're seeing actual people doing it rather than like the book where it's like a little bit of like a detached like perspective almost. It's a little bit funnier in the thing because like I feel like almost book it almost feels like all right,
Because
how do I
in the
put this?
book, because it's a cartoon, you're left to imagine what the real scenario is.
Yeah, but I also think it's like how do I put it? Hearing something secondhand is never like as pain like if you like tell like the most embarrassing story about like you've ever experienced like to someone else, one because some time passed off, you're gonna like phrase it a little bit differently, and you're not in the movies. You kind of see the stuff in the moment, so you kind of almost feel like the exact same pain that Greg is kind of going through, or like you're coming at it from like a different perspective. Where in the book, you're kind of hearing it like secondhand, like the event, like it's not like a POV thing. So because of that, there's like a slight detachment and like I don't know. You're more just able to like kind of just see the scene for it. It's like,
I think that
like
definitely would play a part in it, though. Yeah, like being able to actually like see someone, like a real person, just like do all these shitty things and say all these shitty things. Like that definitely adds.
But also,
to your...
yeah, and I also feel like it's probably just something with a sitcom format because, like, I don't know. I think of like some, Seinfeld or like The Office. Like a lot of these characters are kind of like shitty people and they do shitty things. But I don't know. There's something about like the format makes it feel less. I don't know. But also, I guess because
I
like
don't know.
they're
I
it's
don't
not
know.
a
It's just
kid.
after a
That's
while, I
something.
was like, okay, this is just awkward now. And
Yeah.
I'm with you guys. I'm not really a fan of a lot of the gross out stuff. It's weird because I don't really remember a lot of prominent gross out in the books.
There wasn't like they do like
Well, primarily just
some of
with
the stuff is
Fregley.
there. Like this stuff is there, but like again, it's just like a book. We're not like seeing anything, so like it's not like it's the visual component really that like throws it off. Because like one, we don't like he says you want to see my secret freckle in the book, but one, we don't know what makes it secret. He doesn't like it's gonna like that's not in there. It's just oh you want to
He
see my
also he
secret
also doesn't.
freckle, and we don't
Yeah, he
see it.
also
It's
doesn't
just like
show it. Yeah.
it's just like the implied like threat of like you want to see it, and we're like, what the fuck does this mean? Like it almost like the joke in the book is almost that like, what the fuck does secret freckle mean? Like it's almost like the implication is like all that's there. We're just like kind of left to like wonders like what is wrong with this kid? When in the movie you see it and it's just a gross out joke. They do have the booger thing, but even that is like you don't visually see it. It's almost like the absurdity. It's like the joke isn't like the gross out. It's like this the absurdity. Like this kid would be like, "I'm sorry for chasing you with my booger. Here, I put it on the paper." I was like, "Oh, okay." You can like chase it back, and I was like, like that's kind of the joke, just like that social awareness
Actually,
is not really like.
on that note, I would like to know what is Greg Heffley's thought process in how will having a sleepover with the most unpopular kid in school get you back with your best friend?
Because he
Oh, he thought
just
it would make
wants
him
to fill
jealous.
the loneliness in his
No,
heart.
he thought it would make him jealous because Riley started hanging out with the other kid. I forgot his name.
Wait,
Chirag.
No,
no, it was some like one-off kid that we never see
I
again.
thought his name was Phil.
Yeah,
I think I'm wrong on that though.
yeah, but he starts hanging out with that kid, and then Greg thinks like, oh, maybe if like he like hangs out with Fregley, he's like, oh, look how much fun I'm having with Fregley. Like Riley will get jealous. Oh, it's kind of like the classic like make your ex girlfriend mad type shit, except like it's with
Mhm.
frenemies friendship. It's kind of weird.
Overall,
Like
I
it's
think
both like an adaptation that's like I think improves on the book in some ways, but in many ways detracts from it. So
overall I'd say this movie is decent.
It
yeah,
is
It's a
fine.
decent
I'd
kids
recommend it
film.
to kids. I wouldn't recommend it to adults, but like
Yeah.
I'd still say all these movies are fine for kids.
Like again, there's some good stuff in here. Some really good scenes too. Like we didn't mention the Wizard of Oz scene. I think that's my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Oh yeah. I kind of wish they did more stuff with Patty because I feel like she was pretty fucking funny. Like she was really good as like an antagonist towards Greg. And, like she's a perfect antagonist because like you think Greg gets the comeuppance he deserves, but also like he is a piece of shit. So
It's kind of deserved.
like I guess how do I put this? Like you relate, like you're on Greg's side because Patty is so annoying, but you're also like he kind of deserves it.
One more thing I want to bring up. I think the fake PSA video was one of the funniest moments in
Oh
this whole
yeah,
trilogy.
that was good.
The two old actors, the random celebrity who's there for no reason, the obvious stunt double doing the like it's perfect.
Okay,
That
yeah,
whole
I'll,
scene
I'll
was
say that
perfect.
that's like the only like original. That's one of the few original bits that actually like works, because that wasn't in the book.
I
Obviously,
know it wasn't.
the joke doesn't work in the book format.
But yeah, I think we're all in agreement that this it's okay. But it hurts me personally because this used to be like one of my favorite movies, and now I'm a jaded adult and I don't find a lot of this shit funny anymore. And Diary of a Wimpy Kid made me go through an existential crisis. I think that's my biggest takeaway here.
I
Is there a
still
light at
stand
the
by a
end of the
lot of it
tunnel?
being funny, but like, I rewatched like the third season of Malcolm in the Middle like a few weeks ago, and that held up. I still thought it was hilarious. This one, I was like, there's some good jokes here. A lot of it didn't land. I don't know. It's too. I don't mean like as a diss towards Nickelodeon, but it's too Nickelodeon. Because I feel like Nickelodeon they tend to like they will sometimes rely on cheap humor. Sometimes even if they're better than that, especially their live action stuff.
So movie
All
number
right,
2.
Roderick rules.
Yes. So, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Roderick Rules, was directed by David Bowers this time. I don't know why Thor left for this one, but for the foreseeable future, it's David Bowers for both this and Dog Days. This film was released worldwide on March 25th, 2011. However, a few days before, it officially released in Singapore because the first film was a huge hit in Singapore. I just thought that
Really?
was really funny that they put this movie out in Singapore first and then everywhere else later on.
Oh, that's one point the rest of the world's never getting back.
And I only just have two fun facts for this one. So Devin Bostic, who plays Roderick, had to learn how to play drums for this film, which is kind of funny looking back because in the first movie you do see him playing the drums, but I'm going to assume like he just didn't know what he was doing in that scene where
I think
Susan brings
the
out the
joke
porn
there is
magazine.
the joke there is kind of that he sucks. And I guess
Yeah.
for this one he's like needs to be like good enough. Oh, I will say that seems fucking hilarious in the first movie. A lot of Do you have anything to say to women?
I'm sorry, women.
Like, it's so funny.
Okay, so there's that, and then
I'm gonna say almost everything with the adult characters in these movies are actually like really fucking funny. I kind of wish there was more focus on the older characters.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I have a point to make about
Like
that.
that stuff is really funny, and also a lot of the Manny stuff in the book to me is like some of the funniest shit. But I guess the character is too young for it to like conceivably work.
Yeah, and
It's only 3.
it's already a pain working with like 3-year-olds for like a movie anyway. So
Yeah.
you do what you can, and you don't try to overexceed expectations.
And like he does have to be a baby because like Dewey from Malcolm in the Middle to me is hilarious, but like Dewey is like a solid few years older, so like you can do stuff with an elementary school kid that you can't like you can actually have like an elementary school kid act. You can't really do that for like a 3-year-old. Like he's just too young for any of like the humor. So unfortunately, they had to cut like every real Manny thing from the book, which is a shame because again, that shit is fucking hilarious.
This make me wonder how they would have adapted Cabin Fever in live action. Because
Yeah.
Mandy's essentially the villain in that book.
It's just like a funny idea, like the fact that like a little kid who fully knows that he has like power being the littlest and he uses it. Like that is such a funny idea.
Didn't they make a one animated that's Cabin Fever?
Yeah, but we're not talking about
Yeah,
that.
did?
And I haven't seen it.
Yeah, there's
I didn't know
there's
that.
a whole animated trilogy.
Yeah, but I didn't know Cabin Fever is like in it.
For some reason, they went first book, Roderick Rules, then Cabin Fever.
And you thought Dog Days was a
They-
weird jump.
And they fucking never want to adapt the third book, huh?
Or the 5th. But anyway, I just got one more fun fact for Roderick Rules. So Zach, Robert, and Peyton List, who plays Holly Hills, previously worked with Nicolas Cage, of all people. Because Zach was in National Treasure, Book of Secrets, and Robert and Peyton were in The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yep.
It's just kind of a weird connection.
Peyton List is also a character in that Disney Channel show Jesse, which the guy who plays Chirag is also a character in. So
Yeah,
I guess Disney Channel saw this movie and was like, take notes.
I don't know. I used to watch Jessie when I was a kid. It's kind of strange seeing
Right,
the
yeah.
actress playing Holly play a nice girl here because at Jessie she was kind of a brat.
Was Adam Sandler in one of the episodes?
Yeah, he was
Yes.
waiting for them to play Gangnam Style.
Apparently,
I have no idea why. I don't remember. I don't
apparently
remember that episode.
one of the kids in Jesse was like in the Grown Ups movie, and Adam Sandler actually became friends with him. So I think he did it as like a favor.
Right. Yeah. Cameron Boyce, rest in peace.
As for Roderick Rules, again, pretty simple, just like the first film. Only this takes place a year after the first film, and it's primarily focused around the Heffley family chemistry, specifically between Greg and Roderick. And they try to get along while they also get into some antics, like they have a party when they're not supposed to, and then that just bites them in the ass when they find out that the bathroom door got vandalized, so they have to replace it, and it doesn't have a lock on it. And
I
that
knew that door used to have a lock on it. It just made me think I was losing my mind. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
But yeah, it's still pretty simple. But I'll just start with my thoughts. I thought this was significantly better. Yeah, to the point
yeah,
where I'd
definitely.
say this is actually a good film.
Yeah, like there is this movie is like by far the fan favorite.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
with the book too, because I do remember the book was like of
Like
the
this
books.
movie-
I think the first two books are probably like the best one, and I feel like I've reread the second one a lot as a kid. Like that was probably read the most. So
This movie definitely irons out a lot of the issues I think we had with the previous one.
There's very
less
little gross out humor. Yeah.
There's less cringe, and it focuses on the Heffley family.
Specifically,
It focuses
Roderick,
on, like,
and
the
Roderick
funnier-
is the best part of these films, like hands down.
Absolutely.
all right, I feel like these movies had a kind of similar evolution to it that whatchamacallit, the Malcolm in the Middle show did, because Malcolm in the Middle, it basically it started off with like a lot of episodes focused around the school, but as it went along, I feel like they just kind of realized the best stuff was just the family stuff, so they just started focusing more and more on family, and yeah, kind of similar thing happened with these movies, where it's just like family and rally. They're like those are things that make that work. The actual like middle school stuff, not that interesting, so they just kind of like do away with it.
I completely agree with you there, because looking back, some of my favorite moments from the first film are specifically with the Heffley family, like the beginning scene where you get to know like what everybody is like, their characteristics, their quirks.
And General Grant.
So this film and Dog Days basically just kind of focusing on that while still also doing their own thing, I think is a huge advantage over the first film.
One, it doesn't also add like any unnecessary like unfunny crap, which the first movie did a lot. And it, if anything, it decided that rather than adding time, it was just going to take stuff from the third book and just use that. And it even fit really well in the third book because like again in the books they don't really develop as characters that much. So like Roderick and Greg are still like dicks in the later books. So I think it makes sense to just take like the times where like he's an asshole and then like just put in this movie, which is all about the brothers being assholes to each other.
Yeah,
It's like it's a smart adaptational choice. This movie have like different screenwriters or something.
I think so.
A bunch of guys named Jeff, but not Jeff Kinney. Yeah, Jeff Filgo, Jeff Judah, Gabe Sachs, and Jackie Filgo. The second movie was just written by Jeff Judah. So I guess they fired two of the writers. The third movie was just written by a completely like different team and all. Huh. Which is weird because the third movie I also don't think is that bad. Like I think it's worse than Roderick Rules, but I don't think it's that bad.
So, do we focus on the main man of the hour, Roderick himself?
Yeah.
As we said
So,
before, best part of the film. Devin Bostic kills it.
I think
He's
it's
like-
really
he's like a-
interesting that I find Roderick and Frank Heffley so interesting because I feel like they're not actually all that similar to their like book counterpart, but they just really work for some reason. Again, Frank in the book to me, he reads more of like Calvin's dad from Calvin and Hobbes, where he's much more like he's just kind of like disappointed type of guy. Like he seems more beaten down than like manic when the dad is very manic in these movies. And Roderick in the books, he feels much more like a burnout, kind of like
Given up.
he definitely like feels like I don't know, like not like a giving up, but like he feels like much more like kind of a freak loser, like or much more. I don't know. He's just a bigger asshole. That's what I'm saying. In the books, he's a bigger asshole, and feels like he's like a guy that like I don't know. He's like Reese from Malcolm in the Middle, like a much more like kind of violent, aggressive dude. When this guy is much more of like I don't know. It seems like a dude that's like really into like Jack Sparrow. It's kind of ironic. They kind of like made the brother like cooler in the movies.
He
I don't know.
throws
It
he
works.
throws a party with no alcohol or weed, and it's still like the most bumpin' party ever.
I think there was alcohol. I think they were trying to imply.
Nah,
I
that
mean,
was
they forgot.
Coca-Cola.
I mean, in the morning they forgot they even took pictures, so they might have been working something.
Yeah, like the kids, they probably just had a sugar crash, but I don't know. I feel like everyone else. I don't know.
Also, there's a guy at the party who's wearing 3D glasses and he has a shirt that says 3D glasses on it. What's his story? I demand to know, like, who is this guy? What life is he living?
He's a loaded diaper fan for one.
Another kind of change that I kind of liked was one, they made Holly more of a real character compared to the book, but also I think Holly works better than Angie. I liked Angie, but
Holly serves as more of a
well,
parallel to Greg because she also has an older sibling who's basically just a terrible person to her. And you see that
yeah,
happen in Dog Days. It's only like really implied here because we
yeah.
don't
And
see Heather Hills.
yeah,
I
and
think
I
Holly
like how
was flat in the book because she and Greg weren't
in the
really friends.
book
He just kind of saw her from a distance.
Yeah.
in the book she's the little redhead girl. She's the Charlie Brown little
Yeah.
redhead girl because in the comics she just saw this kind of untouchable thing that he looks from afar and he never even like talks to her, never gets to know. There's no like potential there. It's just kind of like a crush he sees from afar. But in some like the Peanut specials, they do actually show like the little redhead girl, including like the movies. And in those like she actually like does like seem to like Charlie Brown, but like he's too nervous to really do anything. And I feel like there's like a similar thing there where like, and I actually think this movie is kind of interesting companion to like the book because like I almost kind of like almost view this book as like an alt kind of history thing to the book. I mean, this movie as an alt history thing to the book where like if Greg actually did talk to Holly, they actually could have been friends. Maybe not dating, but they could have like been friends. But Greg was too like self-absorbed that in the books to actually like do it. So it almost kind of feels like the way I almost viewed it is like because Greg had that character development from the first movie, like in the sequel, he was able to kind of like make a step forward that his book version never did. That's kind of almost like how I kind of viewed the movie. It's like it's
Yeah.
almost like an alt history. The alt history is did Greg decide to be a decent person? Did he decide to improve as a human being? And if he did, this is the alternate universe. But
Can
because he
he
didn't,
empathize?
you know what? I will say, I think the idea with the movies is that he is growing up, and throughout middle school, like you do kind of sort of grow your conscience. Because like I do think in high school, a lot of the people are better than they are in middle school. So like I feel like in middle school, you slowly kind of grow the conscience, and then by high school, you're kind of better. But with the books, Greg does not age. He stays the exact same, and they never say what grade he is in middle school. But I feel like they kind of just sort of suggest that it's always like he doesn't change. Like fundamentally, he's the exact same age he was at the start of the books as he is in the latest book. Even though I do think he does technically have a birthday in the books, he never actually ages. I don't really have any complaints.
Yeah, no. I think this is a solid film all around. Again, the Heffley family chemistry is what really sells it for me because again, I think that introductory scene in the first film did a really good job of selling me how this family works, their dynamic with each other, why they're dysfunctional, and this movie kind of gives us more of that, which is always nice to see. And again, Dog Days does the same thing. More so with Frank,
And
but yeah.
I don't
I
feel
also
there
like
was
how
like
both this and Dog Days start out with the doodles of the main characters before they go to the
Yeah.
live action actors. Also, a detail I never noticed is that they actually use an unmoving plaid art style on like the journal background when they are doodles, so that they'll move but the background stays still. You can see the
yeah,
lines are stationary.
very
Like
very
I
chill.
didn't realize that until I got to Dog Days, and I'm like, that's a lot of like work put into something that's like 10 seconds long.
Technically, it'd actually be easier to do it that way, but yeah.
Also, that
Um,
that talent show scene where like Roderick like can't perform because he got punished by Susan because of the party. So he sees Patty singing on the stage and he just starts crying. Like that scene is so good.
His makeup is running. It's great.
Yeah.
okay, I will say that is one thing I'm a little disappointed by. Patty was funny in the first movie. I'm fine with them cutting Fredley. I'm fine with them cutting Chirac. I'm fine with them cutting everything else from like the actual like middle school thing. I do kind of wish they kept some more Patty stuff, but
I mean, she's still
she's in there
there.
enough. Yeah, she's in
It
there.
kind of made me it kind of made me realize Roderick is kind of like, what if Spencer from iCarly was evil?
Spencer,
I don't know, just imagine
you know
those
what?
two having a conversation.
Spencer feels like a combination between Roderick and the dad because Spencer would also do like would also do like loud yelling, kind of crazy stuff sometimes.
I don't know. He also kind of has similar energy to David Cross in the Chipmunks movies, where like he is like trying so hard with this material.
All
You
right.
know.
Roger Rules gets a big recommend for me because a lot of the problems that I have with the first film are next to non-existent here, and you're just left with a solid time and a great acting. Again, Devin Bostic is a fucking legend in this, and it's probably his most well-known role.
Basically, if there's any movie from these trilogies to watch, it's definitely this one.
Yeah. Although that's not to discount Dog Days because going
Which
going
isn't
into
bad.
Dog Days, yeah. I only saw this
It's
once
the one.
as a kid.
It's the one no one really remembers, just because like it's the third one. It's the one that by the time that came out, people were kind of like winding down from it.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's okay.
I only saw this once as a kid, so I don't have as much nostalgia for it as I did with the first film and Roderick Rules, but watching it now as an adult, yeah, honestly, this was pretty solid. Again, not as good as Roderick Rules, but I think there's still a lot of the Heffley family dynamic that I loved from Roderick Rules, and it just carries over into this, make it about summer.
Yeah. And honestly, I do think Riley's family is pretty funny, and how much Greg hates it. Like I thought that segment was pretty funny, but also I kind of like how Holly's kind of relationship kind of develops a little bit here.
Right. Before then, fun facts. I got a little ahead of myself there.
Right.
So again, David Bowers is directing this one. It was released on August 3rd, 2012. I don't know if it came out earlier in Singapore. Couldn't find that information. So we've said this earlier, but Dog Days combines two books into one film. So the third book is The Last Straw, and then the fourth book is Dog Days. But here it's just Dog Days, and we get scenes from The Last Straw stitched into this one. Again, I'm going to assume because it was a summer release, they wanted it to be Dog Days because that's the summer book.
Yeah, and also the things they pull from the third one does fit, because the Spag Union is the part from the third book that they put in the fourth book, and you know what? It makes sense. Country club in the summer, that fits better than it would in the second one. The
also
Holly Hill
spending
stuff
quality
also,
time with his dad during a time where Greg would rather be like at home playing video games.
Yeah, and a lot of the Holly Hill stuff is also from the third book, which I guess I feel like the third book was like much more centric on Holly Hills, because I feel like a lot of the Holly Hill stuff from the second movie was also taken from the third book. Yeah, I guess it makes sense which ones they took here, and I feel like they all tied in together, because like I'm pretty sure him getting the Roderick the gig, like they tie that all in together, because like that scene does not happen like at Spag Union, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of clever how they kind of
couple more things
together.
Before we continue. So you had mentioned that the actor for Rowley, Robert Capron, was in one of the Three Stooges movies.
Yes.
They filmed this just as soon as he was done playing young Curly, where he was bald. So for most, if not all, of the movie, he was wearing a wig that whole time.
Really?
Yeah. And a sequel to Dog Days was planned. However, the child actors had already outgrown their roles, and you can kind of hear it with Zachary Gordon as Greg, because he's going through puberty, so his voice is a little deeper. That didn't stop him from making the long haul, but that's something else entirely. Outside of what we've just said, do we have anything else on Dog Days we want to talk about?
I really like how much of this kind of focused on his relationship with his dad, and one thing I really liked, I thought was a kind of clever move, is him staying with the Jefferson family. It almost kind of feels like the classic kind of like Simpsons type thing, where it's like, oh, I'm going to stay with another family. It kind of makes him appreciate like his actual family a bit. Yeah. And it kind of like also gave me parallels to like, now I hate the Fregley segment in the first movie, but I do kind of like how it ended, where like he just like runs up and like gives his dad a hug. And I feel like there's kind of like a similar sort of like parallel thing there going on with like, he's kind of hanging out with like this other group of people because he's trying to make kind of like the other guy jealous. And then like, I feel like it works just better here though, because like, it is like actually about like the dad this time, and also just Rowley's family is a lot fucking funnier than Fregley.
You gotta feel bad for Rowley's dad though. They ordered drinks without knowing that you had to pay for it, so that was like what, $500 on his expense. 500.
I feel like they don't establish this as much in the movies. It was like it was $260.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
Yeah, here's the funny thing. So I feel like the movies, they don't make they do a good job of showing how much of a dick Riley's dad kind of is, but I guess like it's not enough, not necessarily enough where you don't still feel a little bad for him. But like in the books, he's such an asshole. Like when I watched the movie, I just remembered how much of an asshole he was in the books. So I didn't give a shit. Riley's dad is really funny to me, because like he feels like if Ned Flanders didn't like his neighbors, like that's what it kind of feels like. Because like I feel like their family's meant to sort of be like an idyllic sort of like Ned Flandersy type family in a way, and they kind of are. But like, what if Ned actually just did not fucking like Homer and Bart? Like, what if Ned was just like, fuck these kids? It was
Well,
like,
it
oh,
doesn't
I wish
help
like my
that Greg always gets them into trouble. Like even in the
yeah.
films
But also
prior,
like
like there's always
it's
a
never like
scene
really
where
his fault.
Greg sees Riley off when his father's taking him back because of something they did.
I will say, I don't think the ending was super great. Like with the camping stuff, like I don't know. I feel like some of the camp stuff it was funny, but it fell a little flat for me. The Wilderness Explorer stuff.
Yeah,
I'll also say the climax with like Roderick's arc.
where he's singing
It's
Justin Bieber's "Baby" at the Sweet 16.
I it's kind of like it made me cringe. I do like cringe comedy. I like The Office, both versions. But ooh,
I
fucking
think it
hell,
was supposed to
I was
be
wincing.
ironic since that song was everywhere in the early 2010s, and having someone sing it really poorly was probably like funny at the time.
It was like no, I mean like the joke was basically that like Roderick was like trying to woo this girl and he just like really sucks at it. Like I get the joke. It was very painful.
I didn't mind it that much looking
And
back. I thought I would hate it
and
though.
it didn't it I don't know. I feel like it didn't have like what makes like The Office or The Heartbreak Kid, like those two movies were like are those two things are have similar cringe comedy, but I don't know. I feel like something about it didn't work here. I almost feel like part of it was just like in The Office and The Heartbreak Kid, they never like cut away. I almost feel like ironically, the fact that like they didn't hold on it more, or the fact they exaggerated it too much, like I think that killed it for me. Like I feel like if it was a much more kind of realistic kind of bad, where it was just more like awkward, it would have like landed better for me. But like here, I feel like they went a little like too over the top.
Of course, in that Sweet 16 scene, we see Heather Hills again, who's supposed to be like a thematic parallel to Greg and Roderick relationship, where if they don't make up, so it could probably would have been like the same case with them in this film had they not went through what they did in Roderick Rules. I thought that was pretty cool.
So, guys, did you catch Jeff Kinney is Holly and Heather Hill's dad?
Yes,
I didn't.
actually, yeah. He's also in the church scene in Roderick Rules.
I saw him in the. I saw him at the end talent show scene in the audience. I didn't catch his cameo in the first movie, if he even had one.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Apparently, in the previous movie, it says on Wikipedia that the author of the series reprises his role from the previous films as Holly and Heather's father. So I think he was meant to be their dad in the previous movie too.
Yeah, in Roderick
Well, yeah,
Rules.
but I mean the first movie. Does he have a cameo in the first movie?
He doesn't.
Okay. Be honest for a second. I wasn't really feeling this one. It's not bad.
It's a step down,
Yeah.
definitely, but
Do you prefer this over the first movie or vice versa?
I do like the first movie a little bit more, if I'm perfectly honest. I don't know. It's maybe it's because I watched like this immediately after Roderick Rules, so like peak cinema right there. But I don't know. Like I didn't find this one as funny. There wasn't, granted, there wasn't as much gross out as the first movie, but I think this movie has the single grossest scene in the trilogy with the pot roast.
Speaking of, I'm surprised they didn't do more with Sweetie, despite it being called, Dog Days. Actually, I think at the end of Dog Days, the book, they give away Sweetie for someone who could actually take care of the dog.
I think it was like the grandma or something.
Yeah.
Which I just realized we don't see the grandma at all in any of these movies.
No, they do go to their grandmother's house in the first movie during
In the first
Halloween.
one, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It feels like Sweetie was just kind of like forced in, and since it's called Dog Days, you gotta have the dog. But I feel like that pork roast scene was like the only like significant part for Sweetie, because I thought they would have used her more as a way for Greg to like learn responsibility. But Frank just ends up playing with the dog anyway, and that's supposed to be the gag. But again, they don't really do much with that in this film.
Other than like two scenes, the dog isn't really present. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have much to say about this one of the three. Like, it's fine, but I don't know, this one just doesn't really do it for me.
I feel like that might be just like the issue with like watching all these movies kind of like in a row. But actually, but then again, like even like when we were in middle school, like I remember this was like the last movie, and like I definitely feel like even though this movie technically I think grossed more money than Roderick Rules, but like it definitely just felt like I don't know. I know like they did technically want to make a fourth movie, and they're like but like they didn't because they felt the age thing was too much, but like I feel like this is a good place to stop it. Definitely
Yeah.
felt like they kind of ran out of gas in the tank. I mean, then again, Cabin Fever is like really good, but also like again, like Cabin Fever, I don't even think would really work as a movie because like that movie is about how Manny is the devil, which I mean, I guess kind of would have fit sort of themes of the movies with each one focusing on a different family member, and like the fourth one being on the little brother. Could have been on the little brother, but again, I don't know. How old was like Manny's? He would have been like 6, like still like a little too young, I think. Step 3, so.
If they don't age, then he's still technically 3.
Well, in the movies they do age, but yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That's such a funny bit in the book, actually. Anyway, now that we're done with the movie trilogies, we need to talk about the final and true Diary of Wimpy Kid sequel. Nah, I'm kidding.
We definitely weren't prepared for it.
Oh no, we don't need to. Diary of Wimpy Kid, 25 years later.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
Uh,
Actually, you know what? I was joking, but do you want to talk about it for a second?
do you?
The fucking dramatic
Patty,
fucking.
are you okay with that?
I'll acknowledge grown-up Manny and how his face is so fucking funny.
Yeah, grown up Manny with like the no teeth, so it just kind of looks like it's got big lips.
I'll acknowledge that, but
I'm bisexual
everything-
fucking Greg Heffley.
everything else I prefer to just leave on the shelf.
Can you just post like this image out of context somewhere on the
And chances are, if you're listening to this, you probably already know 25 years later, but sure, yeah. That is the most iconic screenshot of the whole fanfic.
You know, it's funny.
Yeah,
Do
more
they
of a-
actually mention Bryce in the movies at all?
In the first film.
Yeah,
He was okay.
good butt, right?
Yeah.
Well, like Fred has like a long ass fucking monologue. It was like, damn, the best advice I got from my life is
Do we have anything else we want to say about this trilogy?
Well, my opinions on some of these films have definitely changed throughout the years, because, again, the first film was one of my favorite movies of all time. It's not that way anymore. And Dog Days was one I didn't really care to rewatch, but actually giving it the time of day has made me appreciate it for what it is. Again, it's more of what Roderick Rules brings to the table, and I like what that film does. But at the end of the day, Roderick Rules is still the king of this trilogy. Probably for the whole
Absolutely.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid filmography. Like, if we're being real.
Yeah. As a kid, I
Cover.
think I probably just viewed all these movies in pretty much the same light. Yeah, I
Even
definitely
as a
say
kid, I
my-
remember I liked Roderick Rules more, but
Yeah.
I feel like as a kid, I liked the first one more for some reason. Which is weird because the books I definitely like Roderick Rules more, but I don't know. I think it might just become like I had the first one on DVD, so I just watched that one more compared to the when I didn't have the other two.
overall, these are decent kids' movies, with Roderick Rules going a bit of a step beyond.
As adaptations, I think they're great. Again, the casting is phenomenal. Like, I struggle to think of like other films, let alone adaptations, that have better casting choices than this trilogy. But your mileage on these films may vary. And while I would like to tell you to watch Roderick Rules first, you probably shouldn't, since there is there's cause and effect between every movie. So you probably should watch the first movie, but it is going to be a bumpy road getting there.
If you only want to watch one, you can just watch Roderick Rules as his own thing. But like, if you do intend on watching all three, or at least watching Dog Days, you are gonna have to. Actually, no. Actually, I do kind of think you can just watch.
But I feel
Like,
like
if
you
you're gonna
also
watch
lose
all
something
three-
if you're just like jumping into Dog Days first without watching the others and seeing
I just
how
feel like if
Greg and like other
If you're
characters
gonna watch all
evolve.
three, if you're gonna watch all three, watch them in order, obviously. But I feel like you can just kind of like watch each one
Yeah.
as its own thing. If you're only gonna see one.
I
Anything
believe
else?
that closes the chapter on this diary.
It's a journal, not a diary.
Okay. Patty, I believe it's your turn to recommend something.
Yes, it is. And this is a rare occurrence for me. I had no fucking idea what to choose. Okay, that's not entirely true. I did have a movie in mind, but due to my schedule for the next coming week, I don't have time to do this one. So I was like, all right, so something else, something kind of breezy, something quick, something you guys would like. And I was torn between two movies, and even right now, I'm not 100%. So this is just me going for it. So this is a movie I've never seen, but I know you guys have because you brought it up in conversation. I don't know if we've referenced it on this show, but I do know you guys have seen it. And this is a bit of an oddball choice for me because it's one of those movies you probably never would have expected me to choose, but I don't know. I'm curious. I hear good things about it. So, up next, we are going to be going back to Adam Sandler with Uncut Gems.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh yeah, I love Uncut Gems.
Yeah, this one's
I
great.
had a feeling you guys would.
Yeah, I actually rewatched not Uncut Gems, but like the Good Time, the movie they made right before it, like not that long ago. So that'll be kind of fun to go back to this one.
Okay, so Uncut Gems is a weird one. I don't know
I
what
believe it.
sort of set of expectations you should go in with. I mean, it is a good film. I mean, we think it's a good film.
Going with the expectations you went in, it's similar to Whiplash. I'll say that. Like at least like
Okay.
tonally, it's not like it's not really similar to Whiplash in any way, but like it's definitely like
The intensity.
yeah, it's got a similar intensity to Whiplash.
Okay. Yeah, no. So I chose this because I was not sure what to choose, and I went into the library. This was on the shelf, and I'm like, I hear good things about that movie.
It's a good movie.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of It's Always Sunny in Hollywood. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go upstairs to a bathroom with a door that has a lock on it.